ever-changing world, kindness is more essential than ever. This week on the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast, I sit down with the incredible changemaker Angela Calzone, President and CEO of Inroads to Opportunities, an organization dedicated to empowering individuals with different abilities. Through job training, placement, and coaching, they open doors to meaningful employment in retail, manufacturing, and beyond. If you own a business and are looking to bring in interns or employees who are eager to learn and grow, I encourage you to visit inroads2.org. That again is inroads2.org. Tune in to this inspiring episode as Angela shares the transformative work she's leading and reminds us all of the power of true kindness. Today's the Day is now offering upcoming workshops with Changemaker guests. To learn more, subscribe to our newsletter and event page at todayisthedayliveit.com. Todayisthedayliveit.com. We have several upcoming events that are truly incredible, informative, and will help you both on your personal and professional journey. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I'm your host, Jodi Grinwald, and every episode I say I get to interview the changemakers, the inspirers, and those who are disrupting the status quo in the most and best positive way across the world. And today I have Angela Calzone. Hi, Angela.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm so excited to interview you.
Thank you. I am so delighted and excited to be here. I think we're going to have a great conversation and learn a whole lot from each other.
Yes, including the fact that we found out that we live in the same town. So small world, right?
That's right.
So I'm going to read a little bit about you so that our listeners can learn a little bit more, and then we'll get into a great conversation, and I'll talk a little bit also about your organization. So Angela Calzone is an award-winning business and management strategist, is the president and CEO of Inroads to Opportunities. She previously served as the agency's vice president and chief operating officer. Prior to that, she served as chief operating officer in a contract position for the Webster Apartments in New York City, and for 10 years as co-managing member of Change and Response LLC, a consortium of leadership management, human resources, management strategists, and corporate trainers. Throughout her career, she has received numerous statewide accolades in recognition of her exceptional leadership, both as a serial entrepreneur, and I know that one well, and business professional. She has been among the finalists of New Jersey's Leading Women Entrepreneurs and Business Owners by New Jersey Monthly Magazine, celebrating among the best 50 women in business in New Jersey by NJ Biz, and nominated for Garden State Woman of the Year. I'm going to stop there, Angela, because we could keep going. That's all of that just sounds incredibly amazing. But before we go there, I just want to mention that Inroads to Opportunities has been around since 1959, a 501c3 nonprofit social services agency providing programs and services to over 400 individuals annually with various types of disabilities and ranging in age from 16 through retirement, and many of whom are economically disadvantaged. So lots to talk about over here. And you know what I always like to do with my podcast guests, because we always come to the table with all of these accolades now, right? That's how we get on the podcast, right? All of these change making, but we didn't start there. So I always like to kind of go back to the beginning and say, you know, when you were kind of growing up and as you were going to, you know, take off and go to college, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up?
Not this.
Yeah,
That's for
exactly.
sure.
Nobody ever
Yeah,
says that, right? It's really like 90% of my guests say not this. So
right.
what was the thought process?
My initial thoughts, because I loved science and nature, I really thought for sure I was going to do something in the sciences, whether it was medical technology or medical research. I was fascinated with anatomy and physiology, and oh gosh, so I really saw myself as something very scientific, very medical, kind of hold up in a lab someplace in academia, you know. But when I got to college, I really rediscovered a passion of mine as a little girl. And that was I love to write, I love to speak, I love to communicate. And I always enjoyed bringing people together. And a professor early on said to me, what are you playing around with science for? It's not for you. Come and be an English major. Come and write for the the newspaper. Let's get you involved in the poetry club and all of these things that seemed nonsensical at the time, but were very, very relevant. So I ended up majoring in English and business, and then went on after working a while to take my master's degree at Fairleigh Dickinson in corporate and organizational communication, which was with an emphasis in crisis. So it was all about, regardless of what you do in life, leveraging communication to make sure your voice is heard, make sure you're understanding others to get to that common goal, whatever that goal is. So it really, my first year of undergrad sort of turned everything upside down for me. So, yeah, I'm not a doctor or a scientist.
Right. So you've been pretty much, you would say you've been outgoing since you were younger.
I'm an outgoing introvert, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
Yeah, I really enjoy collaborating. I enjoy bringing people together for a common goal or just making introductions. I've done that my whole life, on the personal side and on the professional side as well. Um, uh, I've been a guest speaker. I enjoy doing podcasts and shows like this. So this is sort of second nature to me. But all those honors and accolades that you talked about, oh, I really, that's the difficult stuff for me. I like collaborating. I like putting the light on others to make them shine and raising them up and applauding them. And so if I know that I'm up for an award, it's like, okay, how quickly can we get this over with? So
So you've worked in both the for-profit and the nonprofit side of life, right?
yeah, most of my career has been spent on the for-profit side, and I joke about some of the work that I've done. As I've done a lot of work making rich people richer, which has its own rewards, certainly. But you do come to a point in your life where you've amassed all this knowledge and expertise and information and all these wonderful, amazing contacts. Um, and something happens in your life or in your own mental ecosystem, and you decide it's time to give back, or it's time to be a change maker for something that's really meaningful and powerful to raise up others. So that's sort of how this all happened.
So, I'd like to talk a lot about how nonprofits are kind of viewed out there. And some people start off in their career and they start off in nonprofit. And that's what they do their entire career. Typically, if I ask the question, did you ever think you'd be a nonprofit? The answer would be no. I've sat and I've spoken in front of high school students and college students, and I ask how many people here are going to go into nonprofit once they graduate, and nobody raises their hand because it's not at the forefront. Nobody's getting rich off of it, right? That's just not.
Right.
So when you look at the differences between your for-profit roles and your nonprofit roles, just for the listener's sake, you and I know what the answer is, but listener's sake, overlap. Where's the overlap between the nonprofit and the for-profit?
This is an interesting time in agencies like ours who serve individuals with disabilities. And I say it's an interesting time because for many years they've functioned as, as those of us on the for-profit side see nonprofits, sort of these huddles of do-gooding people who want to help those that are underserved or can't access resources in a significant way. And that's good and important work. But even some of my VPs here will joke with me and say, we don't do math, we don't do business. We're here for the love of what we do, and that's extraordinary. But I think the metamorphosis that nonprofits, especially in this sector serving the disabled population, um, are really going through a lot right now in realizing they have to run as businesses. State funding, there's a lot more constraints around that than there ever has been. There's a lot of politics involved in securing state funding in some regard. So when you put all of that together with funding sources and donor sources, grants, foundations, things like that, having their limits as well, you've got to start thinking about how you're going to keep the lights on, how you're going to keep services in place, how many more people can you provide services and supports to, and where's the money going to come from? And also, we have to look at things like maybe some of our agencies have always been used to two primary funding sources, but in business, that teaches us you don't keep your eggs all in one or two baskets, right? Security through diversity. So I think a lot of agencies are even looking to inroads to say, okay, how are you disrupting what we have known to be the norm for so long? So I think we're sort of at a critical point in our nonprofit history, especially in New Jersey.
I couldn't agree more. There's so many nonprofits in the state, all doing incredible, incredible work, helping so many people that need it, and the environment, and so many other, so many organizations are just doing so many good things. What happens is those who are giving, right, are the ones that all of us are going to, and it's the same pockets, right, of those bigger organizations. And if you happen to be in Monmouth and Ocean County, those organizations are very different than if you're in Somerset and Mercer and even further
Absolutely.
north. So
Mhm.
it's, here in New Jersey, I'm speaking just for New Jersey. For those who are listening somewhere else, is that it's where we see a lot of the same names all the time. And
Right.
you talked about, getting a government grants, and it's not just the work it takes to get the grant and pray you get the grant, but then after you get the grant, the amount of work it takes to showcase what
That's
you've done with the grant, right?
right. Right.
So, and thinking about all that, you mentioned about, um, helping those who are, living with disabilities and employment, finding employment for those. And there is this misconception, I believe, that I
Right.
wanted to bring up and have you speak about. And employment for those who have different abilities, I like to say, right? Talk a little bit about the prevalence of this issue, because it is a very big issue.
Yeah, I think it's a tremendous issue, Jody. And I sort of lived that issue as a business owner and entrepreneur, having been approached by local nonprofits to say we've got a person who has a disability who may be able to work in your organization. Can you give them a chance? And I will be very candid and transparent with the audience. My first thought was, how in the world am I going to do that? You know, um, isn't this going to cost me a lot of extra money? Isn't this going to disrupt my customers if I have somebody with a disability? Are my employees going to be distracted? I want to do well and do good just like everyone else when I was a business owner. But you look at your business and say, how is this person going to fit in? How is this person going to not disrupt the workflow between my customers and my employees? And well, that was misconception on my part. And now living every day with Inroads and these wonderful, amazing people, um, I realized that there is a lot of people like me who are employers and large and small companies alike who are having those same uh, objections and questions and concerns and challenges. So I think we are uniquely poised to address those now because I've been on both sides. You know, um, Statistically, individuals with disabilities who come into the workforce supported by an agency like Inroads, and there's so many agencies throughout the state and the country that support employees with disabilities. When they come into the workforce supported like that, they are very employment ready. They have the commitment and the ability, and they also have the loyalty to the companies. What we found statistically is they are more likely to sustain employment. They're more likely to be on the job on time, um, complete their tasks, and they know that they have the backing of an agency that if they're not sure how to approach a supervisor, for example, or there's a new task or a new technology that they have to learn, they have the bench strength to be able to go to their agency and say, I need help with this. And we're right there to support them. So, as from an employer's perspective, it is not disruptive to your workforce. There is typically a job coach, often with an individual who comes through our agency or agencies like ours who get supported employment in the community. So there's a lot of supports around these folks, and it doesn't get in the way of anything. It doesn't get in the way, it doesn't distract your employees. Um, it doesn't disrupt your customer flow. And it is wonderful to see someone who is so committed, despite a disability, to be able to get up, get out there, have a job, make a living, have meaningful and sustainable employment, and be as independent as they possibly can. And so we have had a number of employers sign on. Um, and it's just tremendous to watch people get out there and be able to work. I mean, work equals independence, work equals self-esteem. Uh, and it's just extraordinary to watch anybody, even a college kid when they get their first job with or without a disability. You just see the change that comes over that money in their pocket, that sense of independence and adultness, you know. Um, so even people who need care in other aspects of their lives to be able to feel that level of independence. And there's a social aspect to working too, right? We figured that out during COVID. Those of us that had to be home and work remotely, you suddenly you realized how much you miss your coworkers, right? And so shouldn't everyone have that benefit?
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. Now, if somebody's listening and is like, okay, you know what, I'm really interested in learning more about the process. Can you give us what that a little bit of a synopsis of what the process is if they wanted to bring on someone from your organization?
Absolutely. They can certainly, if they have a job opening, um, or any opportunity. Not only does an employer necessarily have to have a full or a part-time job, they can also open their doors to us because we do a lot of vocational evaluating of people. You know, we may have an individual who comes to us and they're not certain what they want to do. So we'll go through an evaluation process with them. We'll go to one of our partners who has a retail establishment, spend a couple of hours there, and go to another place, maybe I don't know, a gas station or a factory. And so we're exposing them to different vocations um, until they decide, you know what, I think I think I want to work in retail, or I think I want to work in manufacturing or something of that. I want to be a janitor, I want to be a clerk. Um, so we offer that as an option as well. If you don't have employment for an individual, open your doors for us to, you know, take a look and evaluate so they can at least have some exposure. Um, but in terms of if an employer does have a job opportunity, they can certainly reach out to Inroads via our website or by phone or email and let us know what that position is. And then we will look at the individuals that we're working with and create a job match. It's very much like an employment agency, although there's no money involved. There's no headhunter fee for us. We're doing this because we're state funded and we are committed to our mission of getting everybody to work. And just like an employment agency will give you a number of people to interview. And if you want them to come and, try on the job a little bit, we do that as well. Um, the employer interviews the candidates, they select the candidate they feel is best for the role, and off they go. They've got a job. We assist in the onboarding. We're there to help them learn the scope of the job. We're there to help them do the job and just navigate the process of work. And if we have to be there with them their entire career, we will. And if they enjoy the job and get the job and understand it and they don't need us anymore, that's fine too. We're always here if they need us.
That's wonderful. It sounds absolutely such an amazing organization. And I know you had mentioned to me before that you have 70 employees, right? You help about 400 people a year. And it's more than what we just talked about. So do you want to share some of the other programs, please, with everyone, with our listeners here today?
Yes, absolutely. We have an amazing array of programs here. So, in addition to what we call supported employment and evaluation services as well, where we help people select what kind of employment they may want to choose, we also have a mental health partial care program here. And those are folks that may have recently been released from a hospital or need a very structured daily um, psychiatric and mental health counseling support. Um, we have extended employment, which is a program that those individuals may not necessarily be work ready to move into the community based employment. But we have a contract packaging operation here. We have a cafeteria, fully functioned cafeteria here, so they can work at our campus in those capacities, either in contract packaging or doing work in our cafeteria. We have certificate training programs here. Folks can come in and they can learn how to drive a forklift and get OSHA certified, how to be a janitorial maintenance engineer and get a certificate, Surf Save for food handling. So we have a variety of programs, but they're all focused in having the individuals with disabilities. And again, disability could be visible or invisible. But they're eligible to come here and determine how they want to work, how often they want to work, what they want to do, what life skills they want to garner. We start with folks as young as 16 years old. We are considered an out-of-district placement for our school to work transition program. So high school kids from 16 to 21 come here and they'll have their more classroom work sort of in the day, and then in the afternoon, in the mornings, in the afternoon, they go out into the community and they're getting exposure to a variety of vocations and doing some fun social stuff too, of course. That's typical high school, right? Um, then we have a group that is from 21 to 25-year-olds. Those are folks that are not quite ready for employment, but still want to hone those vocational skills. And it's very similar to our transition program. That's called Transition Plus. And those are still younger people who, again, doing classroom and in-house activities, maybe in the morning and in the afternoons, going out into the community and learning everything there is to learn about different vocations and the way different companies function. And they're having a whole lot of fun. I really, I see them driving away in the vans, and I'm like, why am I not on that van with them? Why am I stuck in the office? They're having a great time. But and we have a rehabilitation program that's for the older set. Those are folks who are kind of winding down their careers, but still want the social aspect of coming someplace every day and having a great time and doing arts and crafts and music. And so it's really from 16 through retirement. We do it all.
So, I love hearing the overviews of the organizations that I get to interview the people who work for them. But I think there's nothing better than a rewarding story or a story that you could share of an actual impact that you had. Is there anything that stands out? I'm sure you have many, but is there one that stands out that you would like to share with our listeners?
Oh, yes. I mean, every day there's a story here, multiple stories here, but one I think that impressed me very recently. We are a lot of our folks enjoy volunteering in the community as well. So we had been involved in a litter cleanup day in our community. We're based in Roselle. So we had a whole crew going out there in the borough hall and around the neighborhood there, and they were working with the mayor and the council persons doing litter cleanup. They were just having a great time and making the community look pretty. And there was among the volunteers was a Roselle resident who comes here often to our programs, and he impressed the mayor so much that the mayor decided to hire him full time coming the spring. I think it's full or part time for the Department of Public Works for the town. So talk about
Oh,
great networking and being out there as a volunteer. So our folks are very impressive. They really are.
they really are. That definitely sounds that for sure. And what a great story. And so I understand why you would choose that one. That's a great one. You know, what would you say is, working on in both sectors, what was the most rewarding for you on the for-profit side?
I think wow. Oh gosh, that you know what, there was a lot of rewarding work on the for-profit side too, because I passed through so many companies, especially having my consultancy, and whether it was building a good and sturdy succession plan for a family-owned business, watching a father pass it to his son and daughter, and making sure that the infrastructure was there and that the kids were going to fight, after dad retired and things like that. Um, so I think working with family-owned businesses was really kind of at my core. I really enjoyed watching that wealth and that knowledge, not just the financial wealth, but you know, the family business becomes sort of a family member in a way. Even if family member is not working in the business, they're involved in the business somehow. So I think that's where I had my most rewarding experiences is passing the baton on to the next generation and in helping to ensure their success.
And now on the nonprofit side, what's the most rewarding?
Gosh, just being able to serve, just being here every day and whatever I know and whoever I am and whatever I do, being able to give it to such an extraordinary group of people. I think that just makes me so happy. And, we talked earlier before we got on camera about the commute. I mean, I commute, I think it's what, 140 miles round trip every day from Ocean County to Union County, New Jersey. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world because it is so amazing to be a part of this.
See that, and that's so beautiful because taking, coming from someone here who has traveled, and I lived in Ocean County as well, and I had to go to Delaware and Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, and DC and all over. It's like that after a while, it becomes tough. But when your work is just your heart, it's
Right.
not as difficult to sit in that traffic. And like you said, you got to try to navigate the New Jersey traffic times. That's
Right.
super fun. Yeah, that's what they have audiobooks for, right?
Right. That's so true.
So you're going into the 65th year at Inroads, right?
We are in our 65th year. We just had an amazing celebration. What was it, end of September, for our 65th anniversary. That was our casino night annual fundraiser, which is our big fundraiser each year. And just to know that this place has been around for that long, we are all clamoring and working very hard to make sure that we are sustainable for another 65 years.
Let's talk about funding for a minute because we know that unfortunately that's always the topic of conversation when it comes to nonprofits, right? And funding is tighter. It's been tighter since COVID, and what you're doing is so vitally important. And there's a whole demographic of people that need this support. So, what are you seeing? How are you getting creative? What are some of the trends that you're seeing with fundraising?
I think more than ever, what has shifted for us here at Inroads, especially post COVID, is that we are out in the community more than we ever have been in our 65-year existence. Um, we make sure we have a seat at the table in every conversation possible because we are the community. Um, we are located, we have a three building campus in sort of an industrial commercial setting here in Roselle, New Jersey. And, it's kind of on a cul-de-sac dead end. And it's very easy for us to be, oh, those people all the way over there, those people in on the dead end. Um, but we've made it a point, and I mean across the agency, participants and staff as well. If there's something going on in the county, in the state, in Trenton, we're there. We want to be there. In Washington, D.C., we want to be there. We want to talk about who we are and what we do and why it's important. With the whole uptick in diversity, equity, and inclusion, we wanted to make sure that individuals with disabilities are part of that conversation, you know, because there's diversity within our community as well. Um, and I think that's been a game changer for us.
So now, if anybody's listening and says, I really want to, I'd like to donate, I'd like to get involved. What's your website?
We are inroads2to.org. Inroads2.org.
That's easy because that way you don't have to do the opportunities because it'd be
Right.
quite
Yeah.
long, right? I mean, totally makes sense. So you've been there now. You said not very long, right?
Not very long. I started here in January 2020, just before COVID. And I came in as the vice president and chief operating officer, spent a little time doing that, but with the intent that I knew I was going to be assuming this role in mid 2023. So I was here preparing and really kind of getting the lay of the land.
So coming in from the for-profit world now 4 years in, right? What do you think was the greatest misconception of when you started till now that you might have had?
Oh gosh, I think the greatest misconception I probably had was that misconception that I had as an employer. And that is, how on earth, this was a real head scratcher for me, how on earth are people with disabilities working in the community? How does that happen?
Mhm.
Isn't that a disruption? Wow, it couldn't be further from the truth. It couldn't be further from the truth. And the employers that we work with, the employers that we've honored at our annual award ceremonies and stuff, not only are these folks opening their doors, but and hiring good employees from our community, or giving us evaluation sites, but they're also starting to partner with us in advocacy, in educating other employers why this is a really great investment. This is a population that you really want to bring in, and have as a part of your staff. They're hardworking, they're loyal, um, they want to learn, they want to be successful, they want to move up in some cases. They enjoy the work that they do. They like the camaraderie of being part of a greater organization. So in an era and in a location, certainly in the tri-state area, where really good employees are often hard to come by,
Mhm.
we've got them here, and certainly they're ready to be employed uh, at whatever company or organization is out there with opportunity.
With around 400 people that you serve a year, what program is the one that has like the largest amount of people that are involved and engaged in it out of all of them?
It's We have two that are pretty large. We have the extended employment program, which is based here on campus. And those are the folks that work in our contract packaging business or in our cafeteria and food service business. But then also a large part are in our supported employment area, which is those folks who come in, want to get work ready, and then want to go out into the community and get a job.
So I mentioned those accolades that you had received, right? And New Jersey's leading women entrepreneurs. Let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship, right? Because you're also teaching, right, these individuals too. I'm sure some, entrepreneurship could be a dream of any one of them, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
So when we think about entrepreneurship, it is a best way I could put it's a kind of a lonely road, right? When you're starting from nothing. And I find, and I want your opinion on this, I find that in a lot of cases, not looked at with the same respect at times as some of these jobs that you're kind of positioned into or thrown into. And it's interesting. And especially women entrepreneurs, right? We have to stick together, I feel like, and help and support each other. What can you share with everyone today about being an entrepreneur and entrepreneurship, and especially the camaraderie that women need when they're in that position?
I think it's vital to our success as entrepreneurs that we have resources in each other and mentors in each other, and that we should always seek that out. Young female entrepreneurs, especially, like you had said, Jodi, it's really lonely. To whether you're starting it in your home or whether you're starting it in a storefront or a small office, it's typically just you. And we talked a little bit about the social aspect and how people benefit from just being with each other and engaging and networking. But there's also an awful lot of learning amongst women entrepreneurs. We bring a lot of breadth of experience and expertise to the table, and just life experience on how do you manage starting a business and raising a family, or managing home life with work life. So that, I think, transcends um, age and other demographics, race and ethnicity. I think that as women, we share a lot in terms of those experiences and challenges. So, and there's plenty of organizations, thankfully, in our area that women, reinventing themselves maybe later in life and starting a business, or young entrepreneurs who, coming out of college saying, I don't want to work for anybody, I want to do this myself. There's a lot to be learned from other women, And so reaching out to those resources is truly critical.
Because I was going to ask you that question, what advice do you have for that person, right? And especially second career, right? So I'm, certain age you hit and you're like, okay, I've done this rat race for a while and I've had this vision and this passion and I dream about this one thing that I just really want to launch. And, the thought process of making it happen is so scary that fear holds us back a lot. And when you hit a certain age, though, if you don't do it, you don't do it. And it could become a regret. What do you have? What kind of advice do you have for that person who may be thinking that way right now? They've got that vision and that passion, but they're frightened. What do they do? Where do they go?
I think, if you've got the vision and the passion, I think that one final component is the resources, and resources may not be monetary. Resources could be very much just support of family and friends or others in like businesses and stuff. But I think in those terms, what I've found successful for me is start somewhere, start talking to, even if it's your local chamber of commerce. Oftentimes, even the smallest chambers of commerce have women's groups, or women's entrepreneurs groups, or professional women networking. There are so many things to choose from. But start, if you're a local business and you're just starting out, or you're, again, reinventing yourself, looking to establish yourself in a new career, reach out to the local chamber or a trade association that's in the profession that you're looking to move into. You know, you may have done something in science technology your whole life, and now you've decided you want to be a realtor. There's great organizations for women who are looking to be realtors. So it's all out there, and Google is our friend in that regard. All you have to do is kind of look it up, and it gives you all the information you need. But start pursuing those relationships. That's going to be
Way,
so important to your success.
way different than years ago having to go to the library to find out all
Right.
information, right? Remember those days?
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
I know, same, same. So, are you an avid reader? I was going to ask you a book, something that you read that just kind of changed you or that hit you or helped you.
It's this book I read quite a while ago, but it really has stayed with me and struck me in such a way. It was called The Namesake, and I'm not gonna say the author's name because I'm not gonna say it right. Um, but it was about was sort of a generational kind of pass along thing, and what struck me is, even though it was about an Indian family, as an Italian American, I related to that because you have folks that have worked so hard in your family that have left the parent country, so to speak, to come to
Mhm.
America to pave a way for all of us. And how in a way, as a family, you sort of feel yourself a little separate from them because they've got an accent, or they've got different set of values than you're raised with in this new country. It's a new country for them, but it's where we were born. And it was just an extraordinary read because even at the end you could feel that pass on from the parent to the child. Um, and just an old way of life was sort of dying, and the new country, the new world, the new way of life was beginning. So I thought it was a fascinating read
That's
and very
interesting. That's
relevant.
awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what about, you talked about mentors, and I believe in mentors no matter what age you are, it doesn't matter. We all should have or could have a mentor. I
Mhm.
don't think I had my very first official one until I was in my 40s, but it doesn't matter. Is there a mentor that comes to mind, and what was the lesson? There's usually that lesson that just sticks with you.
Yeah, there's a few mentors that come to mind, but one in particular, and it was actually a male figure in my life who was very important and left us too soon, unfortunately. But he believed in me, and this is going to sound crazy, but coming up, and this, as a young woman in male dominated industries, you're kind of looked at like, well, back in the day anyway, not as you're not taken as seriously. And
Mhm.
he was the first person who really took me not only very seriously, but really spoke professional development over me, and, you know, keeping your eye on the prize and staying focused and believing in yourself. And I hadn't heard that kind of language from other men, you know,
Mhm.
as good as they were and as supportive as they may have been. There was still that not taking the young ladies as seriously in some of those industries as they were taking the young men. So this was a breath of fresh air for me. This is someone who really stuck with me on that and made sure that I made those commitments to my own professional development and networking. And I have him to thank for so much of my success.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you know what? And that's the thing. It's teachers in our life, mentors in our life. And every day we have the opportunity to be that someone for, be that
Right.
something to someone, every day. And the words that we say, we don't even know the impact that they have. If we pay close attention, we
Yeah.
really can, with kindness, help people continue to grow. And just could be the simplest thing, the nicest smile, whatever it is, holding the door open. It doesn't have to be anything earth shattering, right?
No, that's right. That's right.
So before I ask you my last question that been asking everybody, what else is there something you wanted to share about the organization yourself that you want everybody to know?
I would just invite everyone to visit our website. It is great work that we do. And I think it's an education to look at that site and really understand all the interesting and wonderful things that are happening in our community.
Wonderful. And one more time, just give that website before I ask you the last question.
Or we are Inroads with a plural, INROADSTO, inroads2.org.
So Angela, what is the legacy that you're creating right now that you hope to leave behind?
You mean here specifically at Inroads?
Just it's Angela. It could be at Inroads, it could be in general. It's you.
Yeah. I think, you know, you mentioned the word that is very important to me, and that is kindness. I think, especially these days, there's been such an absence and such a vacuum of kindness and just basic humanity. Um, and I have been very committed to that my whole life. I never want to be unkind. I don't want to hurt anyone. Even when you have to make really tough, hard decisions in business, knowing that they're going to impact people negatively, potentially, or financially, um, to do that with kindness and a lot of soul searching. And I think people don't take enough time these days to be that human, you know, to show that sort of humanity and the dignity for others. And we do that through kindness, just being kind to each other. So that's what if anybody takes anything away from me in terms of the way I live, I'm hoping it's that I'm kind.
It's interesting you talk about, sometimes those hard decisions that you have to make. And I remember my dad saying to me, because he said he practiced the religion of kindness. If he was asked what religion he practiced, that was it.
I love that.
And
I
he would
love
always say, when I became a manager and worked my way up, he was always like, just be really careful how you are when you have
that.
to have the tough conversations and let people go because you are responsible for the way they eat. And I never really thought about it that way, right? We don't typically think about it that way when you're in that position. It made it way harder to make those decisions,
Right.
but it keeps you really thinking about kindness, right? When you're in a difficult situation and have to say some things that are just not what you want to have to do, whether it's letting someone go or furloughing or, during COVID and things like that. So, yeah, so kindness. So I'm so glad we met. Can't believe that we're in the same town. So
I,
this is awesome.
I'm sure we'll run into each other now that we know that.
We totally see in Target somewhere or something like that,
Right,
right?
right. Absolutely.
Anything else, Angela, that you want to share?
No, thank you so much, Jodi. This has been such a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. It has been really such a pleasure. And I'm so glad that we'll give some props to Amy Delman, right, for introducing
Yes,
us because she's
absolutely.
awesome. And you're welcome back to come back and give updates of what's happening, at Inroads to opportunities. We want to know, we want to share. Um, and if anybody wants to learn more, please go to the website and please go. So inroads2.org, right?
Absolutely.
Right, can't say it enough. So thanks, Angela. So again,
Thank you.
my guest today was Angela Calzone, and I'm going to say what I say at the end of every single podcast. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what small or large steps are you going to take today to get yourself closer to your goals? I hope you take that step today. Have a great day, everyone. Bye. Thank you to Changemaker Angela Calzone for being an incredible guest this week. She is, again, the president and CEO of Inroads to Opportunities. To learn more about their programming, go to inroads2.org. Don't forget to subscribe to the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day, Live It. If you would like an opportunity to be part of one of our workshops with the incredible Changemaker guests that you see here on this podcast, please go to todayisthedayliveit.com. And you can sign up to be part of our newsletter, as well as receive all of our upcoming emails about upcoming events. We hope to see you next week. Have a great week, everyone.